Hmm. Hmm. Oh, hello.
Hello, Mario. How are you?
Good. And you?
Good. Baruch Hashem.
Good.
Hashem. Where's everybody?
Walter.
7 o'clock.
Always eating Walter.
Walter's eating. That's why he stays slim.
Yeah.
Are we on speaker?
Mario,
Yeah.
switch off the recorder. Nobody needs to know I'm eating.
We talked about an unusual case. Normally when you shecht a cow with a fetus in the womb, so you permit the consumption of the meat of the mother as well as the baby. With the baby can be eaten without shchita.
Mhm.
Baby in the womb is viewed like a limb, and you can eat the fetus. The shchita of the mother permits you to eat the fetus. Now, the Gemara's case was when you divided the trachea, then the fetus stuck its leg out, and then you finished and divided the esophagus. Do we say mimit start simin rishon l'simin sheni? Do we say that it completes the act of shrita l'tahara midei nevela? That normally, if you had shechted, if the animal's limb was outside of the uterus, outside of the outside during the shechita, only the fetus would be able to be consumed, not the limb, because the limb was not inside during the time of shechita. Now, would it be cleansed from tumas nevela or lo? Or no, it might just not it might not be cleansed from tumas nevela either. So ad kan lo ibor lo nalatar midei nevela. We had the case where the stomach had become punctured in between the division of the trachea and the esophagus. We asked, normally if you have a hole in the stomach, it's a treifa. But because the hole occurred in between the division of the simonim, maybe it's an avela. In either case of al-bachila asura, nobody says you're allowed to eat such a thing. The animal would not be able to be eaten because the animal was an avela. Really, maybe Reb Zer did not go back. And Reb Zer l'dvarav the Rava kamar v'leilos firle. He was just responding to Rava, but he doesn't hold of that. That the animal was forbidden. Maybe when you divide the esophagus, it's like the intestines are in a basket once you shech the simonim. and therefore the hole in the intestine that occurred in between doesn't count. Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov, Shmami Amar Midrash Lakish, Mizanin Yisrael Bnei Me'ayin. There are times where a Jew will be able to eat the intestines, but Gentiles would not. Why? My time. A Jew, once you divide the trach in the esophagus, even if the animal was still moving, is considered dead la halacha, and you'd be able to eat any of the limbs, including the intestines, right after you shecht, even though the animal was moving. If you have a good shchita, it's permitted, but they don't need shchita. You can just cut their vessels and they'll bleed to death. You don't have to cut the trachea in the esophagus. But one of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach is Aver min achai. They cannot eat from a live animal. And as long as an animal is moving, for them, it's considered alive. So here's an example where it would be more stringent for a goy than a Jew. A Jew would be able to eat the intestines even though the animal is still moving because he did shchita. But by noivdik chavim b'misa talya milsa and hari kevim achai damu. However, Amar Rav Papa Avu Yasifni Kamed Rav Acha bar Yaakov. We were studying this in front of Rav Acha uboy de imalei, and I wanted to say, immediately do we have any precedence for this in all of law, Jewish law, where it's more stringent for a goy than it is for a Jew? But the law relate. I didn't say that to him. Damina Haitamakomer. He had a reason. However, in the end, Rav Acha bar Yaakov is not correct. Tanya delok Rav Acha bar Yaakov. There's a brayso not like Rav Acha. There was some special medical reasons to eat from very freshly slaughtered meat, even while the animal was still moving. If you want to do that, in the neck, right, we did the shchita, you cut a piece of meat, and because you don't need any skinning there. Umolcha yafa yafa, you salt it. Umedicha yafa yafa, and you rinse it. Umantin lo shetetz nafsh lochla. But neither a Jew nor a non-Jew is allowed to eat meat from an animal that's still moving. After the animal stops moving. Misaile Ravidi Baravin. This supports Ravidi. Dam Ravidi Baravin, Am Rav Yitzchak Bar Ashyan. Harotza Shiyavri, a health food. You remove a kazayas meat from the neck. You wait until the animal stops moving. And then both Jew and Gentile would be allowed to eat the meat. Now, the lo yotzu mehem dam, and you shechted either a behem, a chayiv, oaf, and no blood came. Now, food, in order to be makabel tuma, has to be moist with either dam or tal or yayin or semen zayis or cholav or honey. Then when they're wet, they can be makabel tuma. If they're dry, they're not makabel tuma. Now, if you shechted these animals and no pleikim aksherim, you can still eat it. Just because no blood flow doesn't make it not kosher. Ne'cholim b'yadayim esoavos. You can eat it without doing an netilas yadayim. Hands have been given a status of a sheni. Now, only a sheni that touches truma can make the truma shlishi. And shlishi that touches kodesh can go to a revi. But chullin cannot go beyond a sheni. So if your hands are a sheni, even though they're tummy, you can eat it lefish lo yuchshru b'dam. Because since no blood flowed, the Chullin didn't become hechsher l'kabel tumah. Rav Shimon Omer huchshru b'shchita. The shchita itself is like, makes it susceptible to tumah as if it was wet. Why? Because shchita allows you to eat it. It's like the finishing thing. Just like by kalim, they're not makabel tumah, let you finish the kli. So Reb Shimon, this sort of allows you to eat it, and that's like hechsher l'kabel tumah. Time of the lo yatzam hand dam. Why can you eat it with hands that were not washed? Because no blood flowed. What are you saying? You wouldn't be eat the chilim? What do you mean? Amai, why not? Yadayim shniyos saying, hands are only as status as a sheni. Now, just to review, a corpse is an avi avos tumah, but all other sources of a tumah, like a nevela, like a sheretz, or a human being that touched a corpse, they're an avatuma. If they touch something, it becomes a rishon. If the rishon touches something, it becomes a sheni. By chulin, it can't go beyond a sheni. Now, so the Gemara wants to know what's the problem here, even if it did have dam. Yadayin shniyos vein sheni ois shlishi b'chulin. Chulin cannot drop to a level of shlishi, only truma can. Now, how do we know that we're dealing with chulin? The Gemara is going to give a lot of proofs for that. Proof number one, diktani chaya. A chaya is a wild animal like a deer. There are no examples of kochim that come from a chaya. So we must be dealing with chulin. I'll give you another proof. Basu. How could you tell me? Because we said that if you shecht an animal and no blood came, it's kosher. But if it's kochim, kilo yotza mehem dam kshera, huatzma l'dam utzrach. What's the whole point of doing shchita by kochim? To get the blood so you can do zrika sadam on the mizbeach. And unless you do zrika sadam, you are forbidden to consume the meat. So another proof that we're dealing not with kochim but with chulin. Visu, another proof, iba kochim, ki yotza mehem dam bi machshir. If blood came out, would it be machshirit? Blood from kochim animals does not have the power to be machshir. Shenemar al haaretz tishmechenu kamoyim. You need dam that you're willing to throw on the ground, like water. Dam shenishbach b'mayim machshir, she'ena nishbach kamayim machshir. Dam kochim, in fact, is not allowed to spill on the ground. You have to collect all the blood in a kli. So it says another proof that we're dealing with chulin and not with kochim. Visu, I'll give you another proof that we're dealing with chulin and not with kochim. I bekochim kilo yatzamem dam lo miskashri. So the Mishnah said that if dam doesn't come out, they don't become hechsher. They will become hechsher if it's kochim. Liskari b'chibas hakodesh. Let it become hechsher through the love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Hegdish. The kaimel on chibas hakodesh machshartam. We have a concept that food that is kochim does not require water. Just chibas hakodesh is machshir. So we're dealing with chulin. So if we're dealing with chulin, what's the problem with having unclean hands? There's no problem with that. On Rav Nachman Rav Avua. So here we're going to give a few terutzim. Hacha b'chulin shalachan b'kesef ma'isher askina. You're talking about a farmer who lived in Tel Aviv, and he has 1,000 bushels of wheat, and 100 of those bushels become ma'aser sheni, and there's too much of it to take to Yerushalayim. So he transfers the kedusha. He adds a surtax of 20%. If it's worth $1,000, he has to transfer the kedusha to $1,200. He takes the $1,200, goes through Yerushalayim, buys food. That which he buys is viewed like ma'aser sheni, and that could become tamei through Yadayim Shniyas. The Lokra of Meir, this nan, Kolaton biasmai medivrei soifrim. Whatever needs tvila midrabanon, which is a sheni, like our hands, mitames a kodesh, can make a kodesh a shlishi in order to make some other kodesh a revi. That's called mitame. Upoislas a truma. It makes a truma shlishi. It invalidates the truma, but the truma cannot go on further. And here comes the kicker: muter b'chulin of a meiser. Sheni that touches chulin of meiser doesn't cause a problem. You can eat it. The Rav Meir. Chachamim oisrim b'meiser. So not like Rav Meir. So we could explain our Mishnah according to the Chachamim who argue with Rav Meir that meiser sheni can be made a shlishi. Maski flersimi barashi mimai. How do you know that? Dilma adkam l'klik Rabban Aled Rav Meir el bachilas meiser. That when you eat meiser with hands that are shnios, then Rav Meir allows you and the Chachamim don't. Aval b'negia, not eating, but just touching the meiser v'achlu de chulin, but just touching meiser or eating chulin by a person with a sheni lo pligi. Maybe the Chachamim will also allow it. And this case is negiyahu. You touched it. Because you picked it up with your hands. So we need another way to explain the Mishnah. We're not dealing with hands. Normally when the rabbis said that our hands are a sheni, that's virtually in all cases, except Rab Shimon ben Elazar. The Tanya and Yadayim Tchilos L'Chulin, Yadayim cannot become a Rishon. But Rab Shimon Elazar, Rab Shimon Rabbeinu, Yadayim Tchilos L'Chulin, that for example, if you put your hands into a tzaras house, we'll see, your hands could become a Rishon. So the Gemara doesn't understand. Tchilos L'Chulin in L'Truma Lo? What do you mean? Truma cannot be more lenient than chulin. Hachikomer. Tchilos af lechilin. That means it could be a rishon even for chulin. And shnias letruma in lechulin lo. But hands that are sheni cannot invalidate chulin because we said chulin cannot go down to shlishi. Only truma can. And now the Gemara asks, umiyika yadayim tchilas. Can hands become a rishon in? Hichnis yadav lebeis amanuga yadav tchilas. De Rabbi Kiva. That if you put your hands, not your whole body, into a house that has tzaras, your hands become a rishon. They're Rabbi Kiva. The Chachamim know it remains shnias. Kulam abiyah makes us losh mabiyah. Partial entrance into a house, like with your hands, it's not called coming in. But the question is, you make a gzeira. Hacha b'gzeira yodav atu gufo kamiflugi. Do we make a gzeira for your hands because we want to prevent your whole body from going in there? Mar Savar, Rabbi Kiva held Yadav Kagufot Shavin Rabban. The rabbis treated your hands like your body. If you go into a house, your body becomes a rishon, so your hands become a rishon according to the Rabban. Mar Savar, the Chachamim who argued with Rabbi Kiva, hold Yadayim Kedayim Dalma Shavin Rabban. The Rabban didn't create a new gzeira. They've always said that the hands are a sheni. Here, there's no difference. Freit the Gemara, why do you set this Rav Papa's answer? According to Rabbi Shimon Elazar, look like Rabbi Kiva. Domer, if Yadav Tchilas Sahavim, say it's like Rabbi Kiva. Because Dilma Kikom Rabbi Kiva, Hanamila B'Truma V'Kotchin. Maybe it only becomes a rishon in your hands when you stick it into a Baisam and Nuga. That's if you touch Trum and Kotchin, the Chamiri, because they're more stringent. Avalachulin, maybe Shniya Savyan. So we don't have a raya that Rabbi Kiva holds it's a sheni. So even if it's a sheni, 11 nami shniyas, that shamin Rabbi Kiva do amar sheni oisa shlishi b'chulin. We have another precedence that Rabbi Kiva said that chulin can go down to a level of a shlishi. This nan. Bo bayom darash Rabbi Kiva. This was the day when Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah took the place as the Nasi after they threw out Rabban Gamliel, and there were more Talmidim there. On that day, Rabbi Kiva Darshan, V'kol chli cheres yitma. When a sheretz falls into the inside of a kli cheres, everything inside becomes tamei. Tamei lo nemer eli yitma, not just tamei, but the ability to tamei something else. L'tamei acherim. Limin al kikar sheni, that even if a bread that's inside and a sheretz fell in, which is which would make the kikar sheni shu oisa shlishi b'chulin. But if the sheni could make a shlishi by chulin, Rabbi Kiva holds, so that solves our issue. However, dilma animili betumas deraisa. That's only maybe tuma midaraisa, but hands is a tuma drabona, so we can't extend that stringency to Rabbi Kiva. So we need a third way to explain our Mishnah. People lived and ate their chulin as if it was hegdish. Maybe they were practicing, they were rehearsing for when they were going to go to the Beis HaMikdash before eating the Korban Pesach. And that type of chulin can become a shlishi when you touch it with a sheni, which is the law of Rabbi Yeshua, which is not like Rabbi Yeshua. This nan, Rabbi Eliezer Oimer, oichel rishon. If you eat a rishon, the person who ate it becomes a rishon. If you eat a sheni, you become a sheni. If you eat a shlishi, you become a shlishi. And that's any kind of food, even chulin. These were gzeiros, so people would stay away from tumah. Now, Rabbi Yeshua Omer, oichel rishon v'sheni, ha'oichel rishon v'sheni, sheni. If you eat food that's a rishon or a sheni, you become a sheni. If you eat food that's a shlishi, sheni lekodesh, ve'ein sheni letruma. You become a sheni in regards to hegdish, but not regards to truma. That's in a case b'chulin shenasu al tarsa truma. That's when you're dealing with chulin and you're treating it with the stringency of truma. But that implies al taras truma in, al taras hakodesh lo. Because ksavar chulin shenasu al taras hakodesh les pushlishi. Rabbi Yeshua holds that chulin that you are dealing with on the level of hegdish, it does not go down to shlishi. Truma, yes, but not kodshim. So that doesn't fit either. So the Gemara is going to have to take another approach. The lukma b'chulin comes up with another approach. Okay. Tonight we're going to continue the tsurba at 8:00, and I have all the new volume 21s. So I'll try to get them around to everybody over the next couple of weeks, because I think we'll be in the tsurba probably for another 2 weeks. But I have the new ones. They don't cost anything.
Okay.
Okay?